Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Vijanabhava Girivardhari Vijanabhava Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Thira Vanachari Jamuna Thira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Javihari Radha Madhava Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Shamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Bhajjata Dasatarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 6:17:24. Is that what it says? Yes? Mother Parvati curses Chitra Ketu. Text 24. Atha Prasadhaye Na Tam Shapa Mokshaya Vamini Yan Manyase Hi Ashadukam Aduktam excuse me Saduktam Mama Tat Shamyatam Suti Ata Prasaddaye Natam Shapamokshaya Vamini Yanmanyase Yasaduktam Yasaduktam Mamatat Shamyatam Sati Tata Prasadaye Natam Shapamokshaya Vamini Yamanyaseya Saduktam Yamanyaseya Saduktam Mamatat Chamayutam Sati Tachamyatam Sati Hare Krishna. Word meanings. Atha, therefore. Prasadaye, I am trying to please. Na, not, tam, you, shapamokshaya, for being released from your curse. Bhamini, O most angry one. Yet, which, manyase, you consider, he, indeed, asadu uktam, improper speech, mama, my, tat, that, shamaya, tam, shamyatam, let it be excused. Sati, O most chaste lady. Yeah. But since all of my happiness and distress are destined by my past activities, I do not plead to be excused or relieved from your curse. Although what I have said is not wrong, please let whatever you think is wrong be pardoned. In other words, he said, I'm not asking to be pardoned so that I won't be affected by your curse, but I'm asked to be pardoned if I did anything wrong. Like that. Purport. Being fully aware of how the results of one's karma accrue by the laws of nature, Chitra Ketu did not want to be released from Parvati's curse. Nonetheless, he wanted to satisfy her, because although his verdict was natural, in other words, he was naturally guilty, she was displeased with him. As a matter of course, Maharaj Citraketu begged pardon from Parvati. So, this is such a beautiful part of the Bhagavatam, because we see the exalted nature of a devotee, and he's exhibiting the nature or the qualities that we should try to emulate, we should aspire for. So one of the qualities that he's exhibiting here is that whatever happens by the divine will of Krishna, we accept it. We tend to accept the good, but not the bad. God is merciful when it's good. He's not merciful when it's not good, right? But a higher realization is whatever good or bad happens, we accept it as His mercy, or we may accept it as our due karma. And as Bhagavatam says, and as Prabhupada says, something amazing, the devotee thinks whatever suffering that he's experiencing is way less than he feels he deserves. That most people feel they don't deserve to suffer. Why me? Why means me? Why me means like, why don't you suffer? Why me? Why doesn't someone else? What did I do? Well, how do I know what I did in other lives? So the conditioned nature is that we would think, we all think we're kind of innocent. I didn't do anything, why should I suffer? The devotee thinks, I've done many sinful things, and whatever suffering is coming, I deserve it. That's a very elevated state. It's not easy to think that way. And you can't imitate it. You can walk around and say it, but you may not feel it. So why say it if you don't feel it? Unless you say it because you want to feel it. That's different. But you don't need to fake it. But this is the attitude of a devotee. Whatever happens, it is a minimization by the mercy of Krishna, and I deserve worse. Or whatever happens it's a karmic reaction, and it's just let it happen. It doesn't really matter. So that's exemplary behavior. And we're trying to emulate that behavior. We're trying to emulate that way of thinking. But maybe more outstanding is the fact that as you've been reading, Maharaj Chitra Ketu, he took Mother Parvati's harsh words humbly, didn't he? Took it very humbly, right? And he's being very humble here, don't you think? Just, I don't want to offend you. Whatever curse you've put upon me, I accept that, I deserve it. He didn't deserve it, but he's taking it, right? He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't deserve the curse. I will accept that. Maybe that's some karma or whatever. I accept that. But I beg your forgiveness if I've offended you. I take the curse, like, wow. Have you ever been treated unjustly? And then ask the person to forgive you when they were the ones who should be asking for forgiveness? That's unusual, isn't it? Somebody offends me and I say, I'm sorry, can you forgive me? When they should be saying that to me. That's what he's doing here. He's asking for forgiveness, and he was not the one who did the cursing, who made the offense. He was just joking with his friend, Lord Shiva. So, yesterday we were discussing with some devotees that some people say it's unjust to the good people to be kind to the bad people. It's an injustice to good people to be kind to bad people. Have you ever heard that idea before? Like, I'm kind to people who are unkind to me. Well, that's an injustice to the kind people. Because now you're showing the same mercy to the unkind as to the kind. So that's, you failed all your classes and you're getting into IT. Well, that's an injustice to the students who have worked hard, right? But it's the nature of an elevated soul to be compassionate, even to those who don't deserve it. And it's the nature of an elevated soul that they don't retaliate against those who are unkind or treat them unjustly. This is a very exalted state, and it's not something you can imitate, but it's something we can study, and it's something we can aspire for. If you think of your life, and you think of people who have hurt you, it's hard to be kind to the people who have hurt you, isn't it? And if you think of the people who are kind to you, it's natural to be kind to them. You want to pay them back. You want to reciprocate. That's just normal. That's natural. And so, a lot of what you see in the Bhagavatam is behavior that by human standards is not natural, or it doesn't even make sense. Like, why would you ask for forgiveness when you didn't do anything wrong? Other than, okay, you were upset by what I did. I acknowledge that, but I didn't do anything wrong. But that's okay. I ask for your forgiveness. That's a deep level of humility. And that's extremely rare, but it's in the Bhagavatam so we can hear about it and we can understand when someone becomes a pure devotee, this is how they behave. And now we can look at ourselves. Here's a pure devotee, here's me. What's the difference? And how do I decrease the gap between me and Chitra Ketu? So, imagine you're Chitra Ketu. No, you're not. You're in his position. You're not him. You're in his position. And this happened to you. You go over to your friend's house and you joke with him. And his wife says, How dare you? Don't you know who my husband is? I curse you. You become a demon. Like, how would you react? What would you do? Would you just go, TK? No. Who would do that? Only the most exalted. But we should never think that such behavior is impossible, and we should never think that such behavior is not demanded of us in the process of purification. We may think it's impossible. If you think it's impossible, you won't try, right? I'm just a struggling devotee. You can't expect me to act this way. But Prabhupada wants us to become pure devotees, and pure devotees are Trinadapi Sunichana. Now, here's an interesting fact that you can meditate on. If you live in the temple or you come to the morning program, you will chant Trinadapi Sunichana 365 days a year. If you stay here for 10 years, you have chanted it 3,650 times. If you stay here for 20 years, you've chanted it 7,300, is it? And you can do the math, right? How much of Trinadapi Sunichena, of all those hundreds or thousands of times you've chanted, has worn off on you? 1%, 0.5%, 100%? That's a question to think about. So compare yourself to Chitra Ketu. Think what you would have done if you were in that situation, and analyze how much of Trinadapi am I affected by? How much is that penetrated within my heart? I don't want to depress you. It's kind of a depressing thought, isn't it? When you realize how much has penetrated my heart, probably 0. Not much. I mean, I think for a lot of us, what happens when we hear these verses, it's such a deep level of consciousness that we can't even comprehend it, and so we just chant it as duty. You're supposed to chant it, right? If I don't stay in the temple and chant it, I don't get breakfast, so I'll just chant it. I have to be here, right? And it's like it's so esoteric, it's so unrelatable that when we chant it, it's like, you actually want to offer all respects to others? Raise your hand if you want no respect for yourself, and all you want to do is respect every living entity in the universe. Do I have any volunteers for that program? You have to want to do it, not pretend. Who wants to do that? Everyone wants a little respect. Yeah? Please give me a little respect. I don't get any respect. I'm leaving ISKCON. I can't take it. At least if I got a little respect, I would stay. And now the new bhaktas join, and I've been here for 25 years, and I'm supposed to respect them? Are you kidding? I'm not going to respect them. They're new bhaktas. They're just kids, 20 years old. No, Prabhu, it doesn't stop there. You're supposed to respect the ant. You're supposed to walk around the ant when you see it as a living entity, right? So we hear that verse, and it's like, where in our brain do you have a box for Trinadapi? Do you have a Trinadapi box? It's like it goes in my brain. My brain's looking for a place to put Trinadapi, and it can't find it, right? So it just goes out and goes, it's a nice verse. I can use it in class, right? The unfortunate reality of life is that we don't want to be humble. It's much more fun to not be humble, right? Because then you can control people, they can honor you, they can serve you. That's the conditioned self, right? So, what Bhagavatam is trying to teach us is that if we want to be pure devotees, then we're going to have to behave like Chitra Ketu. That's the direction we're going. And it's not like when I become, we open a new temple and I become the temple president, I don't have to chant Trinad anymore because I'm in charge. No, you have to chant it more. And it's expected that you'll be closer to it because you're an older devotee. What's the word used? Shamya tan. Let it be excused. Thank you. Over the years, I've done many forgiveness courses. And one of the most interesting things about the forgiveness course is that it's a popular course in the Hare Krishna movement. Now, thinking logically, one could say that if I wanted to make a living teaching forgiveness courses, the Hare Krishna movement should be the last place I could make any money, because we all believe in karma. Whatever happens is the result of our actions. We're all compassionate, humble, forgiving, etc., right? Some of you are laughing because you know that's not true. The Hare Krishna movement is a great place to teach a forgiveness course. And in fact, I'm teaching one in Delhi, and I'm sure we'll have 50, 100, 200, who knows? I'm sure we'll fill it up because we need it, right? But technically speaking, we shouldn't need it. Should we? I mean, if you believe in karma, why should you have any problem forgiving anybody? Because it's only a reaction to your past. Maybe you were enemies in your past, right? Maybe you offended them in your past. Maybe you offended them in this life and you don't realize it. Maybe you did something, you don't know what you did. But when they offend you, unless you act like Chitra Ketu, you got some work to do. And it's not a full manifestation of what it means to be a devotee. So, sometimes we think to be a devotee means you get up early and chant your rounds and do seva. And I'm not saying that's not everything. So if I think I have good sadhana, I have good seva, then I'm good. Well, according to this verse and the example of Chitra Ketu, we're not good enough. We also have to do this, right? So when we have interactions with other people and other devotees, it's an opportunity to be humble or not humble, right? Somebody hurts you. It's an opportunity to be humble or not humble. It's an opportunity to be forgiving or not forgiving. You have an argument. It's an opportunity to ask forgiveness or to apologize. We have lots of opportunities to do what Chitra Ketu does. It's not easy, and we don't always want to do it. So, at least if we don't want to do it, we should reflect on why don't I want to do it? Right? Like, what mode is affecting me at this moment? If I'm purely in the mode of goodness, I'll have no problem asking for apology. I'll have no problem not retaliating. I'll have no problem asking for forgiveness or giving it. If I'm in passion, it's going to be a problem. And if I'm in ignorance, I'm going to be very, very angry. So if Chitra Ketu was in the mode of ignorance, he would have counter-cursed. Or he would have went to Lord Shiva and said, discipline your wife. This is not acceptable. Doesn't she realize who I am? And then say all kinds of nasty things about women. Right? That could have happened, right? Look at this woman. Look what she's doing. She's supposed to be this exalted woman. Look at how she's behaving. This is unacceptable. This is offensive. Have you ever said to someone, what you said, that was offensive? Have you ever said that to someone? Your behavior was offensive, your words were offensive? It's funny, isn't it? Like, I'm so exalted. Sri Gaurnitai ki jai, Sri Radha Kunj Bihari ki jai. I don't know about India. I'll have to ask you if this is true. But in the United States, as far as my experience goes, we very rarely accuse someone of being offensive. It's not normal. There were words that were not in my vocabulary before I became a devotee. Like, there was no occasion to use them. Humble was one of them, because we had no need to be humble. Because, if you're humble, you're going to lose. So I never used that word. I don't think I ever even heard that word. But another word we didn't use was offensive. Like, I never told my friends, we were supposed to go out at 6 and you didn't show up till 6:30. That's offensive, Prabhu. Did you ever do that? You ever use that word? Yeah. It's a very ISKCON, how should we say, or Vaishnavas, we have to be careful to not offend devotees, but then we start thinking people are offending us. So it's kind of funny, isn't it? If someone mistreats you and you say, Prabhu, that's offensive. Like, you're offending me. Well, that's pretty humble, right? If I tell you you're offending me, how humble is that? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being extremely humble and 0 being not humble at all, I'd give it a -1. What about you? Yes? I think a lot of times we don't have these discussions, we don't think about this, because we can just define humility in a way that's convenient for us. Like, I'm serving prasadam today, therefore I get a star on my forehead for being humble. I'm going to clean the toilet today, I get another star for being humble. Right? I'm going to help devotees load the Sankirtan van, I get my 3rd star for being humble. Right? And then I go back in the ashram and I tell you how bad this Prabhu is and that Prabhu is, and I think I'm humble. Yes? Have you seen that? So we may compartmentalize certain qualities that are convenient and easy to do, and not think about the ones that are difficult, because they're difficult and we can't do it, and we should be thinking about them, but we tend not to. Should be thinking, this is a problem. This devotee said something to me, and my whole 16 rounds I was angry. Okay, raise your hand if you've ever been angry for 16 rounds the whole time. And were you more angry when you finished your rounds? Yeah. That's really interesting, isn't it? So we have to print up new mantra cards. The old card said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. The new card says, chant Hare Krishna and be angry. So somebody does something, it disturbs us so much that even while we're chanting the holy name, we're disturbed, and instead of thinking of the holy name, we're thinking of them and how bad they are. And with every mantra, Prabhu, what does your mantra mean? What's in your heart this morning while you're chanting? That Prabhu is bad. That's what my mantra means. And with every mantra I chant, I realize how bad he is. That ever happened to you? 16 rounds of that Prabhu is bad. And that all happened right after you chanted, Trinad api suni chena, right? Isn't that interesting? Actually, we should not be laughing, we should be crying, right? So, all I'm really saying is that when we hear these stories and we see the qualities of Vaishnavas, we have to really look at these stories as they are, not pretend that this is not for me. This is Chitra Ketu. I'll never be like him. I don't have to think about this story. This is on another level. It's from another universe. I just have to do my seva and everything's okay. No, we have to look at it and say, what just happened? He did not retaliate for huge injustice, and he apologized. Oh my God. You mean I'm supposed to do that also? Yes. Do I have to? Yes. You have to try. That's what Krishna consciousness means. Because if you don't, then you don't get the result of Trinadapi, which is Kirtaniya Sadahari, which is another way of saying get a taste. So, it's interesting. Sometimes we chant japa and it's like really difficult. You ever had one of those days? And you feels like somebody poured concrete in your brain or on your shoulders, in your ear, like everything is hard to do. And you're looking at 16 rounds and you're thinking, I'm never going to get this done. This is too difficult. It's curious, isn't it? Because yesterday you had really good rounds. And why today? Maybe, I don't know, something to consider. Maybe yesterday I offended somebody. Maybe I was not being Trinadapi. Maybe I was being the opposite of Trinadapi. Maybe I was not offering all respects, but offering all criticism to others. Maybe we have some days reverse Trinadapi. Offering no respects to others and wanting all respects for myself. Have you ever done that one? Yeah. We'll call this lecture Reverse Trinadapi. So maybe that day I was in reverse Trinadapi mode, and the next morning I'm trying to chant and there's no taste. It's possible, right? According to that verse, it would make sense. Wouldn't it? Some degree, right? So it's something to consider. It's not, don't think that it's being humble is relegated to do I have to be humble? Well, if you can, it's good, it helps. No, it's not like that. It's not like, we'll try, and if you can't, just do your seva. And someday you'll become humble, and talk to the devotees who've been around 50 years and say, Prabhu, is this someday I'll become humble thing working for you? And they'll tell you, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like, you mark it on your calendar, 50 years after you join, on that day you're going to wake up humble. Just stick it out and wait. No, it's not like that. You actually have to do it. You have to work on it. You have to practice it. You have to think about how to be humble, how I'm not humble, and then look at all the opportunities you get, because inevitably someone's going to offend you, someone's going to mistreat you, someone's going to say something about you that's unkind, someone might lie to you, cheat, whatever. That's going to happen. That's what happens here. And then, when that happens, you can say, thank you, Krishna. You have given me an opportunity to practice humility. Because last week, if that happened, I would have become really upset, and I may have said something that later I would have regretted saying. But now that I realize that this is important business, Chitra Ketu has shown me how I should behave. Thank you, Krishna, for giving me this opportunity. And I have an opportunity to let it go, not criticize that person, maybe say something, thank you, Prabhu, for correcting me. Well, I'll consider that maybe I've done something wrong. Thank you for bringing it out. We have that opportunity. Not easy, definitely not easy, but that's what Krishna consciousness is. So, we can't look at something that's difficult and just say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll do this. I'll do my service. But this humble stuff, nah, not for me. Not in this lifetime. I'll never be humble, never was, never will. No, that's not how it works. That's too easy, right? Well, how many things are you going to write off that you aren't? No, we can't do that. We have to practice. Yes? Otherwise, we read this story, and the only thing we get from it is like, wow, that's amazing. I could never do that. And we turn the page. That's sad, don't you think? If that's all you got from this story is, wow, Chitra Ketu Maharaj is amazing. You see what he did? Turn the page and think, yeah, not for me. Not this lifetime. And so there was no benefit from that story. I mean, some inspiration, but what was the inspiration? Where's that inspiration taking you? To do what? To just think, wow, I can't do that. So now we're saying this story in the Bhagavatam is just there for entertainment value, not for our purification. Because that's basically what we're saying if we write that story off as impossible. It's a nice story. I liked reading it, made me feel good. And business as usual. So, we're supposed to end class at 9, and why don't we take some time for discussion and questions? Yes? We need to send a microphone to the back. Can someone create an app that could allow that microphone to fly to whoever's hand is up? That would really be nice.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you Maharaj for highlighting the quality of humility. I was thinking that just like pure devotee doesn't manifest his devotional qualities always, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did nocturnal kirtans, he didn't allow anybody to see his devotional feelings.
Yes.
Similarly, the qualities which arise because of devotion, like humility, knowledge, that also is not given to anyone and everyone, because ninth offense is to instruct a faithless person about the instruction of the holy name. Similarly, I was thinking that similarly humility also cannot be externally shown. It can be in the heart, but it should not be externally shown to some people who are not qualified. I have Shastric evidence. I mean, my idea of, you can help me understand. So like in this case,
you're saying that they would commit offenses if you're humble. Something like that? They would if we act too humble, they'll misbehave. Is that what you're saying?
No, if somebody is humble, he can be his state of heart, but he may not be externally apologizing to a person who is not qualified. If it is genuinely his mistake, that's fine. If genuinely not mistake, like in this case, Chitra Ketu Maharaj, he was very clear because Parvati was very qualified devotee. She's a Vaishnavi, so she could understand him. But in case of Narad Muni and Daksha, Narad Muni didn't speak anything. Though Daksha was so offended, but he didn't say, I'm sorry and all, because he knew that Daksha will backfire again. Like for example here, let's see the last line. Although what I have said is not wrong, please let whatever you think wrong be pardoned. So this statement, in case if Narad Muni was supposed to tell to Daksha, although what I have said is not wrong, then Daksha would backfire. How dare you say you are not wrong? Huh? And like that he would have told. I mean, I'm just telling, but because Parvati is a proper recipient, she's a Vaishnavi, so he could ask. So my original question is, just like we don't express our devotional qualities to anyone who is not qualified, similarly this humility aspect also should be given to those people who are qualified. That's what is my understanding. Can you elaborate and give your insights, Maharaj?
I'll tell you a story. Not exactly, maybe in the line of what you're saying, and then I'll address what you're saying also. Prabhupada said, if we are attacked, somebody comes in and attacks, then you take Trinadapi and you put it on the side and beat him up, because he's going to beat us up if we don't beat him up. And that is our humility. We just manifested in a different way, you know. So I wouldn't say if somebody came in and the big brahmacharis came and this person's attacking devotees and that brahmachari attacks him, we would never say that brahmachari is not humble. We would say he's protecting the devotees, right? So I think your point is humility is going to manifest differently in different situations to get the proper result, right? Because like you say, it could backfire, and that's true. And another more, maybe a more sensitive issue is within the Sangha of devotees, because if I'm too humble, somebody could abuse me because they know I'll just do whatever they ask, and I'm sick, and the kitchen needs to be cleaned, and it's 10 at night, and I know if I ask this devotee, he's so humble, he'll do it. And I shouldn't ask him, but I'm not smart enough to know I shouldn't ask him. And I'm burning him out, and he's getting more ill, he needs to rest, and so on. So that's unfortunate if our humility plays into a person's mistreatment, which would be, at that point, our humility is like, no, I'm not tolerating this, because there is a point where tolerance becomes destructive, because I'm tolerating something which is unhealthy. So what you say is true, and I think there's so many varieties of that in which our humility wouldn't help somebody, and our humility would also be destructive for us. But like you rightly said, it's not that we're not humble, it's just how we show it, right? Prabhupada would get very angry, and people would think he's not humble, but he's humbly serving his guru and Krishna. It just doesn't look like it. The audience, he's screaming at somebody, the audience doesn't understand. So Arjuna is fighting, but he's fighting out of humility. And he didn't fight out of pride, but it looks the opposite. When he doesn't fight, it looks like he's humble. But if we understand his relationship with Krishna, he's not humble because he's disobeying Krishna. And when he fights, he's obeying Krishna, so he is humble. So, it's not black and white, obviously. And so your point is well taken, I agree. I think this point of tolerance, how much, we don't usually talk about how much tolerance is too much. We usually talk about unlimited tolerance, don't we? Just, tolerate. But if you tolerate to the point where it's bad for you, then that violates a principle of surrender, that don't do anything which is not helpful. Do what is helpful, avoid what is unhelpful. So, if I were a pure devotee, my tolerance would be on this level, and you could even try to kill me, and I would just pray for you. But if I'm not on this level, and I'm here, and I try to imitate that level of tolerance, it'll be bad for me, because it'll build up anger in me, and frustration, and one day it'll come out. Have you seen that? Like when you try to tolerate more than your level of tolerance can allow, you get frustrated, and then at some point you could act in the wrong way or even offensively. So that's something to take on board in our practice of humility and tolerance, like what is actually I'm capable of, and as you say, and how others would be effective. And then the other thing is, don't ever think you're humble just because you can go up to someone and tell them, Prabhu, you're great and I'm nothing. That doesn't make you humble. If it were that easy, I wish it were that easy, because I would just stop class right now and say, everyone should go up to everybody else and tell them, you're great and I'm not. And then we would all go to breakfast and we'd all be humble, and the whole false ego thing would be finished, right? So it doesn't work that way. You can't imitate the humility of a higher devotee and think it's going to work for you, because by imitation, there's a tendency, at least is what I've seen, to avoid the actual practice of humility and do a show of it. So, you do the Prabhuji, you're such a great devotee. If I had only one particle of the bhakti you have, I would consider myself unlimitedly fortunate. It's like, and you're looking at me going, are you nuts? You don't mean that. Why are you saying that? You're pretending, right? Because we're not that advanced to feel that. So if you're trying to express a level of humility that's way beyond your level of advancement, it doesn't help you. And it can cause you to avoid seeing what you actually need to do to be humble. So I'm not saying it's wrong to glorify devotees, but it should be genuine. And just so you understand, when Krishnadas Kaviraj says, I'm lower than a worm's stool, what he's saying is that I see all living entities higher than me, which is inconceivable, right? I mean, let's just be real for a moment. You're sitting in this room, right? Look around and figure out where you stand. There's 100 of us here or whatever. So out of 100, where do you think you stand? In the top 10? The top 15, top 20? We do this, right? And then you've got the whole caste consideration being in India. So you could add that into the mix. Well, I know this Prabhu is from this family, so I put him lower. They interviewed CEOs, and they interviewed 100 CEOs, and they asked, what percentile do you think you're in? And 90 of them said the top 10%. So if you do the math, you can't get 90 in the top 10%. You can only get 10, but 90 of them thought they were in the top, right? So if you ever have thought you're better than another devotee, like you know more shlokas, you've been around longer, he's a new bhakta, he didn't go to the same university I did, etc. For any reason you think you're better, then you can never go around and tell anybody, I feel lower than a worm's stool, because you don't. You feel much higher than a worm's stool, more like a statue on the top of a building, something like that. So we don't want to imitate that kind of humility without even understanding what it means, that it means something. All it means is that this is defining humility. And now we know what it means, that I feel everybody's better than me. And I don't feel that, not yet. I wish I did. I'm trying. But we can't do it artificially. Is that okay? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Thank you for very wonderful class. Yes. When Bhrigu Muni was trying to offend Lord Shiva, in that pastime we see that Parvati was not making any comment on Bhrigu. In fact, she stopped Lord Shiva also to stop from killing Bhrigu, saying, he is your brother, so please leave him. And in this pastime, our Chitra Ketu is just joking with Shiva, and Parvati is getting cursing him. So how do we understand when to show humility, when to show tolerance? Hare Krishna.
It's very, very simple. It was divine arrangement to exhibit the exalted qualities of Chitra Ketu. It was all arranged. If this pastime didn't happen, we wouldn't have been able to have this class. And there's so many good instructions that we get from his behavior. And then we also get this amazing thing that happens after, that he becomes Vritrasura, the demon, but the demon is acting more saintly than Indra, which is also interesting, because I'm a devotee, so I think I'm a devotee, I'm better. Well, this pastime, the devotee, the deva, wasn't better. So, that's the reason. So it's like, if you want to glorify let's say you know somebody, that they have a certain character or a certain ability, and you want that ability to be seen by others, you might create a situation where they could demonstrate it. It's like, we have to do some construction, and this devotee's super strong. Nobody would know how strong he is. And you say, Prabhu, could you lift 4 bags of cement on your head? Each one with 100 kgs. And he goes, like, sure. And everybody's watching like, oh my God. I had no idea he was that strong. So it's just like, Krishna loves to glorify his devotee, so he just set up this Leela to glorify him. Because you could ask the same question, why did Prabhupada struggle so much? I mean, he's Krishna's pure devotee. Why did Krishna create that situation? Well, if you want to make a blockbuster Bollywood movie, it's not going to start out that, well, he got a first-class flight to upper Manhattan and he's being sponsored by some wealthy people in a penthouse. And they were taking care of him and some old wealthy women were coming and supporting him. That's a pretty boring movie, isn't it? And secondly, it's not instructive to anybody. The only thing it says is, if you ask me to preach, well, where's my first-class ticket? Where's the penthouse apartment? Where the wealthy people are going to support me? Then I'll go, right? So Krishna decided, we're going to glorify Prabhupada and we're going to make it really difficult. And then, for me personally, once I was in a very difficult situation and I was having trouble just tolerating what I had to tolerate and being steady in my service. And one of my godbrothers, he said, read the Lilamrita, read Prabhupada's beginning, what he went through. And I read it and I felt like, whoa, what I'm going through is a fraction as difficult as what Prabhupada went through. And that helped me so much. So Krishna creates situations to glorify his devotees. You know, Parikshit Maharaj was glorified. Just you go through the Bhagavatam, you'll see. You know, just another opportunity and another example. Glorify the devotee, it's an example for us, right? Parikshit Maharaj is cursed. What did he do? Kill Shringi? Take Shringi to court? Get on Facebook and tell everybody how bad Shringi is? He accepted it. Wow. That's a lesson, isn't it? So, you know.
Just a follow-up question. In the devotee care seminar, we also hear many times that humility does not mean people start walking on us. Yes. So at the same time, we have to be smart enough that we don't get cheated by anyone. Yeah. So how do we understand that?
Yeah. Because you have to protect yourself. There's two things to understand. Humility is an internal state of consciousness where I don't think I'm the best thing in the world, and I respect other devotees. I respect all living entities. And humility is also having an honest evaluation of your pros and cons. You know, it's not like if I have a good quality, it's not humility to acknowledge it, because I can acknowledge that Krishna has given it to me, but that doesn't have to inflate my false ego. Like you say, oh Mahatma Prabhu, I like your class, or I like your kirtan, or whatever you like about me. It doesn't necessarily have to inflate my false ego. It could actually humble me and say, well, Krishna's mercy that I could do that. I don't feel qualified, but he's empowered me and I'm so grateful, right? So humility is an internal state. The interaction with other people who want to take advantage of someone who's humble could then be destructive for that person. And so in the sense of protecting your own bhakti and your own creeper from someone who could mistreat you or treat you in a way which would be unhealthy or not helpful or destructive for you, you have to create boundaries around that person. It doesn't mean you're not humble, it just means you're protecting yourself. And if we don't do that, then in the name of tolerance, we may, like I said, we may tolerate something that we shouldn't tolerate because it's frustrating us, and we make offenses towards that person. And one day we may just blow up, right? Now, if we were more advanced, we wouldn't have to even answer this question because that would never happen. So the problem is we're looking at a situation of a very elevated devotee and we want to try to achieve that, but if we can't, it's like we just tried to lift too much weight and we just tore a muscle, right? But this devotee over here, he's lifting that much weight. Yeah, but he goes to the gym every day for the last year. So, you know, when you can lift that weight, you can lift it. But until then, you can't. So when we read about exalted devotees, It's like, okay, this is the goal, but what can I do right now? Because if I try for that, I'll pull a muscle. And it could backfire. So, protecting ourselves is part of just ensuring that our creeper can grow in a healthy way. Sometimes, for example, there were two devotees and they didn't get along. And Prabhupada would say, okay, you go here and you go there. So he'd give them two different projects, So that was necessary because there's just a bad combination. And he didn't say tolerate in every situation. When he saw that they couldn't tolerate, he just separated them. So it was like practical, So it's like, if you're a good manager and you see two devotees will never get along, you won't spend 3 hours every day telling them to get along. You'll just say, okay, you work in this department, you can be in charge here, you can be in charge there. You get leaders together, like, here's my little thing. Could you imagine all the GBC was one temple? Could you imagine? That would be an impossible temple to manage because they're all leaders, right? They'd be arguing about everything, isn't it? So, not all of them, but you could understand. You have a bunch of leaders together, they need space. So Prabhupada would give them space rather than say tolerate because he knew they can't. Jamuna says, she tells a story that Prabhupada saw that Jamuna was extremely intelligent and he wanted her to be a GBC because he gave her lots of responsibility. And then she tells in her book, the reason Prabhupada decided against it is because he saw the men would not accept it. They were intimidated by it, or they thought, whatever they thought. And so he didn't. So sometimes you can't do what you want to do, you have to just do what's practical. So, I want to be more humble in this situation, but I may get exploited to the point where it's unhealthy, right? And then what happens is we go beyond what's healthy, and then we exploit ourselves. And then we don't even need people to exploit us. We'll burn ourselves out, in the name of just be tolerant. Tolerance is good. We need it, but we have to be able to do it genuinely. Otherwise, it could backfire.
Hare Krishna Mahaprabhu, very grateful for your enlightenment today. Throwing some light in the very esoteric quality of humility. And you were mentioning very beautifully that I have compartmentalized understanding of what it means.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for showing some light in that quality. My clarification is about clarification. That appears that here Citraketu appears to be clarifying himself to Parvati. For me, I don't know that what I have said is not wrong, but let what you think wrong to be pardoned. So my question is that when
that doesn't seem humble. Is that what you're saying? It doesn't.
No,
seem
not
humble.
at all. I am saying that Chitra Ketu is all glorious.
Well,
it means in my life, what I should do, when I should try to clarify or try to just forgive.
it may mean that what he's saying is, I didn't mean any harm. It wasn't my intention to offend, so I didn't do anything wrong. That's probably what he meant. Not like I'm right, and you have to recognize it. So no, I didn't do it. I wasn't criticizing him. That's not what it is. He's my friend. I was joking. That makes more sense to me because that's, he's not going to come in. Well, I didn't do anything wrong, and then at the same time say, "Forgive me." That doesn't make sense. If I didn't do anything wrong, what's there to forgive? It's like he's kind of saying, "It wasn't my intention. You misunderstood, and I recognize it hurt you, and it was not my intention." That makes more sense, don't you think?
Comfort her also, I think so, in the sense that it's not the tone which you said, the tone difference.
Yeah.
It is just clarifying the
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
What
that's,
I want,
that's fine. Yeah.
what I want to understand, Prabhu, is that when we should try to clarify the things and when we should try to, yes, this is what it is.
Uh-huh.
You know, this, and
Yeah.
I am ready to accept, but should I clarify or not? No?
Yeah, I think it's very
Forgive-
good. It's very important to clarify with a person who's willing to listen to you clarify. And if you try to clarify with a person who doesn't want you to clarify, it'll just upset them. I mean, it's unfortunate if they're not willing to listen to you clarify. So, if you're a leader and you're correcting someone or chastising someone or inquiring, definitely you should let them clarify. But not every leader will allow everyone to clarify. And so if you want to clarify and they don't want to hear it, it's probably better just, what can you do? You know, it's just going to make it worse. Because they'll just think, well, you're just defending yourself, you're not acknowledging what you did. And you know, clarifying is, well, this is what I did. I thought this was the right thing. Was it the wrong thing? I was told to do this. And the leader may say, oh, I didn't know you were told to do that. I thought you just made that up. And so then it's resolved. So that's good. But sometimes the leader may not want to hear. I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me. What can you do? Well, my advice to you and to everyone here is, if you're ever in a situation where you see that, oh, a leader should have listened or inquired, have been more patient, just think, when I'm a leader, I want to learn to do that. Because this didn't work for me or it didn't work for that devotee, and I can see that devotee needed to be able to clarify. So if I'm ever a leader, let me remember that if I see a devotee doing something wrong and I make an assumption something's wrong, let me ask him, tell me why you did that. Let him clarify. Sometimes that's all you can do. You just learn, you know. For better or for worse. I've learned so much from the mistakes of others. You should never let a mistake of another person go by without learning that you should not do that. And then we can benefit from mistakes. We've learned so much from mistakes, other people's mistakes. I was once in a situation and the behavior of one leader was upsetting a lot of devotees. And when I saw that, it was just a loud message to me, don't ever treat devotees like this. This treatment is upsetting. Everybody's upset now. So it made an impression in my mind, like a note, like we say, note to self. Don't treat others like this leader's treating these devotees. It's having a horrible effect on the devotees. They're all discouraged. So that's the best advice I can give. Because you know, if someone doesn't want to listen to you, what can you do? But you notice how you feel. I needed to communicate it. He doesn't understand, and then he's upset. He's wrongly upset with me because he doesn't understand, but he won't let me explain it. So we can't solve the situation, and I feel so bad. So I know, oh, I don't want to ever treat anybody like that because I feel so bad now. And then if I treat others that way, they will feel the same way. So sometimes all you can do is learn. And, you know, it's unfortunate the leader didn't want to listen, but that's what happened. If we all learn from the mistakes of others, ISKCON will get better because we won't repeat those mistakes. But if someone makes a mistake, often what happens is when you become a leader, you make the same mistake because you think, well, that's what, you know, when I become a leader, I can yell at everybody because that's what my leader did. And it's almost like, I'm sick of being yelled at. I want to become a leader so I can yell at other people. And then you have a disciplic succession of bad behavior. So if you want to break that by always seeing where there's bad behavior, that you can not repeat it and then instead act properly. And if we all do that, ISKCON gets better and better. I was a temple president when I was a young devotee. I was like heavy. because that's how I was treated, and I thought that's what you do when you're a temple president. Prabhu, I can't do this. I said do it, I'm the temple president. You have to do it. Because that's how I was trained. No discussion. Okay. But, doesn't work. And I realize it doesn't work, and so I just stopped doing it. Like they say in a family, generational dysfunction, it goes on and on until one of the children says, I'm not going to continue it, and stop it. So I'm not making an assumption that you have bad leaders and devotees are being mistreated. I'm just saying if it ever happens, just make sure you don't repeat it. And what you can also do is if you see it happening, you can defend that devotee and go to the leader, because maybe you could talk to the leader. Maybe he won't listen to that devotee, but he'll listen to you. And so you go to the leader and don't just allow this devotee to suffer, because he didn't do anything wrong. The leader heard he did something wrong from somebody who doesn't know exactly what he did, or doesn't like him, or doesn't understand his motives. So you go to the leader and say, no, it's not like that. So that's also something that can be done. Not that can be done, it should be done. It's our duty. Because if someone's being mistreated and you can defend them and you don't, then you're mistreating them also, indirectly, right? We should end class, right? Yes.
Prabhu, we are told, that we should always see good quality in others. Try to appreciate good quality in others, how they are doing better than us also, or maybe they are doing good and serving the Prabhupada mission. But that is just enough, because if just by seeing good in them, it doesn't change me. I am seeing good in others, but it doesn't change. But that is okay, or it should necessary when I am seeing good in others, that should change me also.
If you're seeing good because you're supposed to see good and doing it as a sadhana, it's probably not going to change you much. But if you're seeing good because you're actually seeing good, and you're trying to see good, and you're trying to develop a mentality in the heart so you can genuinely appreciate another, then it's going to change you. So it can't be artificial, because then it's lip service. Go around and tell everybody they're great. Prabhu, you're great. But in my heart, I don't think he's great. So my heart doesn't change. But I have to say, he's here. He could be, he could be in the university, he could be working, he could be do so many things, and he's here. And I think, wow, that's fantastic. There's, millions of young men that are pursuing their own interest, and he's here living, in a room with 10 other devotees, and the room is, as big as a closet on top of one another, and he's making all these sacrifices. Wow. And then you actually feel that. That's what would purify you. But if I just say, glorify him, and say, oh, Prabhu, you're great, then you don't feel that. Then it's almost like duplicity. Better don't say it. Because what's the point? If you want to practice something, you need to feel the mood of what you're practicing. Like we're talking about japa. Japa is a practice, but you have to feel it. Because if you just do japa and you don't feel it, it doesn't work, right? It's external. So anything you do in bhakti, you want to feel the mood of what it is, to some degree, And that's where the transformation takes place. And I could add to that appreciation is an emotion. So if you're not feeling the emotion and you're speaking the appreciation, technically speaking, you're not appreciating. So once you understand it's emotion, you realize if I say something to glorify somebody and I don't feel it, it's totally artificial. And you know what? Don't say it, because the person won't feel it and he'll think you're just faking it. And it'll just make your relationship worse. Because if I say, Prabhu, I think you're like an amazing devotee, and you're thinking, he doesn't even know me. Why is he saying that? To me, maybe he's saying that to make himself look good. I'm going to go around and glorify everybody. It makes me look good. because you're not feeling it, because I don't feel it. But if I say, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I feel it, you'll feel it. You can't feel it if I don't feel it, right? I often say, this is so funny. Sometimes devotees say, when I'm chanting japa, I don't feel Krishna's reciprocation. And I say, well, it sounds like he's reciprocating with nothing. You invested 0 and you got back 0, so why complain? Right? So I don't feel anything when I chant, and I'm expecting to feel from him, but I haven't given him anything to work with. I've given him 0. So in the same way, I'm appreciating you, but I don't feel anything. You don't feel it either. I'm not giving you anything to feel. So whatever we try to do in bhakti, we want to understand, well, what is the mood of this? What is the mood of japa? What is the mood of kirtan? What is the mood of puja? What is the mood of cooking? What is the mood of service? What is the mood of sangha? And then you can do it genuinely. Otherwise, it's like, it's like a robot. Right? You ever feel like you're chanting is like a robot? It's like you could just make a recording and turn it on and go to sleep. Get the same result. So we don't want to do things mechanically, because everything is about the mood and the feeling and the consciousness. So if we were to do an exercise and I asked you to appreciate one another, I would spend a lot of time explaining what appreciation is, so you don't just say it and not feel it. And then you could go around and say, wow, there's over 1 billion people in India, and there's only like 70 in this room right now. You're all special. You're all amazing. And you actually feel that. Then when you go around and appreciate, you just go, wow, thank you. Right? And that's real appreciation. Otherwise, it's, I appreciate, it's like, well, what do you appreciate? Well, your tilaks, it's pretty cool. That's all external. That's not what appreciation's about. And if we're only appreciating externals, you're not really appreciating, right? I mean, I can appreciate your tilak, but it's not what appreciation is, right? Right? Well, your tilak does not compare with Gaur Gopal's tilak. That's off the charts appreciating, right? But it still does. You appreciate his tilak doesn't mean you appreciate him. Just I like his tilak. That's not appreciation. You have big muscles. Wow. I wish I had big muscles. I appreciate you. That's not what we're talking about. Correct?
Krishna, last
Yes.
question, please. Thank you. It usually happens with me, although I have gone through a lot of articles, a lot of source and scriptures to be humble, and even in this lecture, but I know myself that even after all these things, there will be a manifestation of a moment where I'll react, and the more intense the moment is, the more I react, and in a very short period of time I realize it. And again I equipped that humbleness, and I forgive, and I ask for forgiveness, but not in the actual present moment. I am able to be conscious.
Yeah. So something is triggering you, and after you get triggered, you come to your senses and realize, oh, I did the wrong thing, right? A lot of people say, ask me, they say, how do I control my anger? Especially in the moment when I get angry. And I always say it's too late. It's like, what do I do now? I just punched him in the nose. Well, you should have talked to me a few seconds before you punched him in the nose, right? But usually the problem is not in the moment. The problem is something else that could have happened 20 years ago that this thing is reminding me of, or this anger issue I have started 20 years ago and I never resolved it, and so everything is fine and good until this one thing happens, and then I burst. So if something like that happens, the first thing that I would think myself is like, okay, something is going on here. What is it? Like, why does this bother me so much? Right? And then you'll begin to discover something about your nature or something about your past. And it'll be like the lights will go off in your head and you go, oh, now I understand. You want an example? I'll give you an example of my own life. One time I was doing a workshop, and it's probably like the 100th workshop I've done in my life. And my wife's done like one in her life. And she was like telling me how to improve it. And I was like, thank you, but I kind of know what I'm doing and you don't do this. And I got a bit upset. And like for no reason. There's, she's just trying to help. And then she said like, okay, all right, I'm just trying to help. And then I thought about it, like, why did I get upset? Because there really was no reason to get upset. And then I realized I was born with a very independent nature. Like, I learn by doing. I don't usually learn by people saying, do it this way. It's like, oh, don't tell me. Let me just do it. It's just my nature. So she comes in and tells me how to do it. It's like, no, if it's wrong, I'll figure it out. That's my nature. So I understood, well, that's why I'm upset. Because I don't like people telling me what to do. Or maybe it was, my mother always told me what to do, and it's like, I'm sick of being told what to do. And so the next person who tells me what to do, I'm going to scream at them. Because I was told what to do so many times growing up, it's driving me crazy. So it could be something like that. And then once you know, it's like, oh, that's why. So next time it happens and you start to get angry, you realize, oh, my mother always told me what to do. That's why this is bothering me. And it just calms you down. You figure out how to, you understand the cause, and then you never have to worry about it, because every time it happens, you realize this is why it's happening. So if we understand why we're behaving in a way, it's pretty easy to control it, generally. Unless it's deeply, deeply rooted and it's like it's like an addiction or a dysfunction. That may be something else. But in normal life, for most of us, you work on it. So now when you go out in the world and that happens, it's no longer a problem. Because you're like, oh, that's stupid. I just don't like to be told what to do. I know why. It was my mother, or it's my nature. I'll deal with it. So every time you get upset about something, think about why. What's causing it? Why? Because usually there's no real reason to be upset, isn't it? Does that make sense to you? Yeah. So I have to leave it to you to figure out the answer. And if you can't figure out the answer, you could discuss with another devotee. Maybe by talking you can figure it out, or find a counselor who has experience who could kind of help you. And we can all do this. Every time you behave in a way that you regret having behaved, figure out why. What got triggered inside? There's a saying, when you squeeze an orange, what comes out of the orange is juice, orange juice, now of course not mango or pineapple, because that's what's inside. Similarly, when you are squeezed, what comes out of you is what's inside of you, right? So if we understand that, we won't blame the other person. It's like, oh, it's your fault, you make me angry. And if he's smart and wants to, wake me up, he'll say, I cannot make you anything that you are not. So he didn't make me angry. I have anger in me. He just was a trigger for it. So when something happens and you want to blame the other person, remember the orange juice. When you're squeezed, what comes out of you is what's inside of you. So when you squeeze Prahlad Maharaj, what comes out? Compassion, right? Squeeze Haridas Thakur, compassion. Squeeze Ambarish Maharaj, compassion. Squeeze yourself, anger, frustration, resentment, right? So, Hare Krishna. We should end now, right? If we don't end now, then it'll go forever. So I guess we're going to see you tonight, correct?
Hare Krishna, we want to thank His Grace Mahatma Prabhu by chanting one time Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Today evening also there will be 7:30 Japa session will be here, and Prasadam for everyone now. Hare Krishna.